Good morning, McKenzie County, and welcome to the Living in McKenzie County podcast. This episode will be dropping to you on Tuesday, February 17th. And what I can say is we're filming today. It's Friday the 13th, so we just hope everybody is enjoying their Tuesday after getting through Friday the 13th. I'm really excited about the topic we have with us today that we're going to be discussing, and we're going to spend some time really getting into the work that our county and city engineers lead on a daily basis and the capital improvement plans that they are working through right now. And we're going to spend some time talking a little bit too about what this upcoming season looks like and a little bit about what long-term planning looks like from a infrastructure and a capital improvement position for both the city and the county. And so with that, we're going to just go and do some self-introductions. And so Justin, Grace, if you can share with us a little bit about how, and you two work together a lot, how long you have been with the city and the county, respectively. Maybe a little bit about yourselves personally, how long you've been in the community, maybe some connections if you want to share any of those. And then we'll get into some of the discussion on our theme for the day, which is capital improvements. So Justin, do you want to kick us off with self-intros?
Sure. Thank you, Vawnita. I'm Justin Smith, the city engineer for Watford City. I've been working for the city for about 15 years now. I had been in public works prior to the last couple of years, working in City Hall, and my wife is Angela. She was at Skoglund as the connection. Got two kids, Asha and Bridger. They're both grown and out of the house. And we really enjoy living in the Watford City area.
Well, thanks for being with us today, Justin. And you definitely shared it, but the infamous Skoglund girls is how they are referred to. So, yes. So glad you're here. And thanks for being able to tolerate Angela.
Oh, yeah.
She's amazing.
It's good. They keep in contact with each other quite often. So.
Yeah, and keep all of the in-laws on their toes, I'm sure.
Yep.
All the boys.
Yes.
All the men. Cool. Well, thanks for being here. And Grace, if you want to share self-intros with us.
Sure,
please.
yeah. I'm Grace Demars. I'm the McKenzie County Engineering Director. I started with McKenzie County in October of 2022 and then took the Engineering Director job in December of 2022. I was with the county in 18 and 19 as an engineer, and then went to the city and was a city engineer for 3 years and came back to the county after that. My husband and I have been out here for about 10 years now. We moved from Minnesota right after school and started working out here and now have 2 kids. So raising our little boys out here. And yeah, we love McKenzie County. I think not everybody, but a lot of people come out here with a 5-year plan, and that 5-year plan quickly turns into 25 forever plans. So we have no intentions of leaving.
Well, great. We're glad you're here. And your 2 little boys are adorable. We're glad they're here.
They're a lot of fun.
Awesome. Excellent. Well, thank you both for being here. And before Coy turned the cameras on and the mic on, we were talking a little bit about capital improvement when we talk about that as part of a local political subdivision's budgeting process. Like, how do you grow? How do you expand? How do you get projects done? And to be able to do all of those things, you have to have the infrastructure. It's like the backbone to build communities off of, right? And so I think, Grace, you gave us a little bit of a warning that we have a lot of projects coming up, both city, county, and state DOT side this summer. And so kind of my goal for this is to help the public understand how projects become projects. There's lots of ideas that never make it to projects. And then a little bit of reminding us as we go into construction season in North Dakota, those short-term pains of progress, how long-term we can enjoy those after the fact and how they improve our lives. So to the public, this is a little bit of a rah-rah cheerleading session to remind you that all of these painful pieces become something long-term that we can enjoy as a community. So with that, I also said I love doing work with engineers because they're very detail-oriented. And so Justin walks in with a very substantial packet of information, and so did Grace. So while we have an outline, we're definitely going to take the time to make sure we give you guys the opportunity to share with the public what you want them to know about things coming up. With that, I think, Grace, if you don't mind, we'll start with the county on your recent project. I think it was November, December, the county went through a very intensive public input process for both land use ordinance and capital improvement. Can you talk a little bit about that process and what came out of that?
Sure. So we have been working on our capital improvement plan actually since the end of 2024. So I like to say that it kind of kicked off with our county road inventory project where we inventoried all the roads in McKenzie County. We went township by township, range, section by section, and just really dove into each road and inventoried what roads were county roads and where we should be allocating our resources and our time. And so once that was done, we got a pavement condition index study done at the end of September-ish of 2024, and then we got updated traffic counts where the DOT didn't have necessarily traffic counts for us. And so then we took all that information and all that data and we analyzed it throughout 2025 and came up with a plan based on different criteria. So we looked at our bridges, we looked at our road and bridge shops, we looked at multi-use paths, and we looked at our road network because we have a pretty large transportation network. And with that, we compiled all the information. We prioritized the roads based on a set of criteria that we worked through with the Public Works Subcommittee. And then we compiled all the information. We developed our proposed CIP plan and we brought it to the public. So we had 4 different public input meetings, and we tried to have them with other types of meetings as well so that we could draw people in for multiple purposes and really engage with them. So we had one down in Grassy Butte in December and Keene in December, and those were in conjunctions. We actually have 2 projects going on, one in Grassy Butte and one in Keene to reconstruct the roads in those communities. So we met with the local residents in that area and talked about both those projects and the CIP then. And then we also had one in Watford City in January and Alexander too. Got a lot of good feedback from the public. We had a survey that people could submit information on and, tell us their thoughts on the proposed projects. And we've worked through it multiple times with the Public Works Subcommittee and tried to get different, Facebook posts and newspaper, hit different outlets so that we could make sure that we get a lot of public engagement and feedback on the proposed CIP before we bring it to the commission for final approval.
Well, I want to say, as a resident of McKenzie County, we live 15 miles southeast of Watford. I felt like you did a great job of making sure every single person had the opportunity to participate in that. It was a couple postcards in the mail. There were lots of social posts. It was just very well promoted, so people had the opportunity to participate in that. So thank you for that.
Thanks. It was really fun to get out to the different communities. We don't always get out to Keene and Grassy Butte, and I get out to Alexander quite a bit more because that's the area I live, but it's fun to get to talk to the local residents and just hear what's going on, see what they're all doing.
Excellent. I know we had talked about this a little bit, and Coy has show notes that are always placed with the audio and the visual of the pod. Let's verbally hit it, but then we'll make sure they're in the show notes. Where can people see this document? I think it's in draft still, but as it moves into progression, where can they find the information?
It's all posted on the county website. So we have under departments, there is the road and bridge department. And so that encompasses engineering and the road and bridge maintenance side of things. And so we have quite a bit of different information there, and it'll be under the capital improvement plan tab.
Okay, perfect. And for those who like to hit the landing page and use the spyglass, capital improvement plan, CIP?
Oh,
question mark?
I have not used that.
Oh,
So
it's handy. So
I would say that, yes, that would
Okay.
probably get you to where you need to
okay,
go.
perfect. Okay, wonderful. Well, that's great. Let's put a pin on county stuff.
Yep.
And then let's roll through a little bit of what the city has coming up, Justin. And I will let you talk. I feel because I am more connected with the inner workings of how the city works through their process. But can you share with the viewers and the listeners how the city works through the prioritization of CIP planning, and maybe even a little bit of the document that you just worked on putting together for preparing for next legislative session, which was the very wide 2015 to 2040 outlook on CIP?
Sure. The city works through the CIP process on kind of two aspects, like you were saying. Partially is maintaining, upgrading, replacing existing infrastructure, and then also expanding infrastructure, growing parts of the community with new roads or new buildings, that sort of thing. The process is renewed or repeated every year, starting in the first or second quarter, to get prepared for the next year's budget. And the priorities are reviewed, and the funding that's anticipated to be available is also reviewed to get to narrow down the list of projects that will be scheduled for the next year or two. The process usually involves a couple of years to get a project constructed. The first year would be to do the design and preparation, and then the projects typically are publicly bid and then advertised and awarded to a contractor. A lot of the projects that we do in the have done recently are year-long projects, can be completed in one construction season. City is working on a project that looks like it might go into a 2 or 3 year construction phase downtown. And once that list is initiated or decided, some estimates are put together, and then that's put into the budget for the following year for the design or construction fees, and then from there, that portion that's the capital improvement part of the budget will be initiated for the process to get the project developed. And that involves advertising for consultants or some. Typically, there's an outside third party that'll do these services for the city to get the project designed, and then the following season after that, it will be advertised and constructed. That answer your question?
It does. And I guess the takeaway, I think both county and city sees this, before the public ever sees a shovel of dirt turned, there's probably 2 to 3 years into planning, designing, budgeting, preparing.
Yes.
And so I think sometimes, and we had this happen in the first 15 years of, it started as the boom, it turned into the industrial operations side of oil production. But people sometimes saw the perspective of the priorities different than what the county and the city did, but that had a lot to do with the ramp up as you're preparing a project, those signals that you're seeing 3 years before the project actually happens, or even sometimes even more, like you don't just start a project at the snap of a finger. So
Yeah,
right. And those projects, back in the boom time frame, a lot of the projects were fairly short fused, if you will, where there was a need identified and funding identified, and as soon as possible, the project was developed, designed, and then constructed. Now, the process that we've been going through more recently is a little more regimented. As of 2 years ago, Watford City, as a result of the 2020 census, has been now classified as a urban area for the purposes of federal funding through the NDDOT. And part of that process requires that you, as the public agency, submit your project requests ideally 5 years ahead of time, so that the DOT can ensure that they can basically they have to divvy up the federal funding that's available for the road miles in the state across whatever projects are planned. So we on projects where the federal funding will be utilized have to plan those quite in advance. And we've so far, this is new to us, so far the projects are just including chip seals, but the next round of projects will probably include some reconstruction or new construction. One other aspect of that that Grace can talk to too is Watford City is its own urban area now, and most of the road mileage within that urban area, which roughly follows the city limits, are Watford City-owned roadways, but there are some McKenzie County and NDDOT roadways in there as well. So depending on what priorities are happening on a given year, that funding may get split out differently between the different agencies. So.
Did Justin cover what you were thinking when I posed that?
A little bit. I was just going to say more from the county aspect. Our projects can take 2-3+ years, just based on the environmental documentation that we need if we're going through Forest Service land or Corps land or whatever type of federal land that might be. Our right-of-way process might take a little bit longer because our projects are longer, so they might it might take a little bit longer. And then we have different utilities that we have to work through or work with on our projects too. So some of the projects that are proposed in this updated CIP, I mean, we're talking there might be a 2030 project, but we might start design 26, 27 timeframe, just so we can keep ahead of all of these different requirements that we need to do. So.
Yes, the other thing in terms of all of the lead up planning to project start, I have noticed, and you guys, you know it, you live it, you breathe it, but so many of the projects might be lined out, but an outside funding source opportunity might come up. And so that might shift things a little bit here and there, because kind of a trivial question, you can pass on it if you don't feel comfortable answering it, but how often is there a CIP project that is solely funded locally that doesn't have some other source matches to it, whether it be state from some portion of state funding or federal funding? Typically, aren't they a blend of local, state, and federal money?
For the county, we locally fund, I would say, a vast majority of our transportation related projects. We do have some that have DOT or federal funding associated with them, but I would say a vast majority of them are locally funded.
For the city, it kind of depends on the type of project. Facilities, for example, are predominantly locally funded, but other projects that involve the roads or water mains typically have some sort of aspect for grant funding included with them, whether it be a water commission, cost share, or a grant from DOT for a certain aspect of a project. They typically aren't all locally funded. So, I have one way my brain's going, and then one place I want to just back up for a minute. Grace, when you talked about a lot of the county road grid, especially the CMC roads being completely locally funded, can we dig in a little more on that? Because I think I'm talking to the listeners and the public. When we look at whether it's road enhancements through reshaping, regrading, or even more so upgrading a gravel road to hard surface,
why we do that, the funding source we have, we're very unique out here. I'm going to first get on my soapbox and lay it out, but then let you talk a little more about maybe even like what you work on in an annual budget for road CIP specifically. So county major collectors, it's a classification of roads. It's on the county grid. It's not on the state grid. It's not on the federal grid. But county major collectors, they are typically farm to market roads. But because the oil industry is out here and essentially we don't have an industrial park, the county is an industrial park with 2-mile spacing units on drill lines. The county is tasked with providing a functional road system for the oil industry to operate. So we receive gross production tax in lieu of downhole property tax annually. And I wouldn't say that all of that goes towards road and bridge, but a portion of it. So do you want to talk a little bit more just about the effort of keeping that industrial CMC county road grid optimal for industry operations?
Yeah, most definitely. So the county has done a great job at doing such. So I'm just going to peek at some notes as I talk about this. But so we have 97, just some fun facts. I think they're fun. I don't know if everybody else thinks they're fun, but I think they're fun. So we have 97 major structures. So what a major structure is parallel to the road, the opening of the bridge would be 20 feet or longer. And so that's what the federal government classifies as a major structure. And we have 97 of those. And 95% of those structures are less than 50 years old. So if you think about a bridge, it usually has a 75 to 100-year lifespan. So the county has done a great job at keeping up with those bridges, which is really important to keep the oil industry moving. We see a lot of overweight loads. And so to be able to move those overweight loads over the bridges, we need to have good bridges that can handle the loads. And so 51% of them are less than 25 years old too, which is quite remarkable. We don't have, I think after our 24th Avenue Southwest project, that'll be our last timber major structure that we are replacing in the county. Wow. We still have one other minor structure that is still timber, but so the county's done a great job on bridges alone. I also want to hit too, if you don't mind. Sorry, this might be a little loud with the microphone. No. But let's see, our paved miles, we increased our paved miles quite drastically during the boom. And in 2015, 2016, and 2020, we paved over 25 miles of road each of those years. So that's 75 miles worth of paving done in just 3 years. And that's not something that's typical for counties. So kudos to the county commissions and the engineering directors that have come before, because they got a lot of work done to just support the industry, which is necessary to, for quality of life for the people who have to drive down the roads. It's necessary to keep the industry running 24/7 so that during inclement weather they can still, for the most part, I mean, we don't have every single road paved in the county, but try to get to where they need to get to on those paved networks. So, yeah, the county's done a fantastic job. I don't quite remember the rest of your question, but
no, I mean, you're right on you're right on it. It did lead me to a second thought or question. So over the last 3 years, you've done 75 miles.
Oh, that was 15, 16, and 20.
Oh, okay. So in 3 years, you've done that. Can you talk a little bit more? Like, I think we're getting through the phase of upgrading all of our restricted, axle weight restricted to full 105.5. And are you getting close to being through all of those 80,000 roads, or do you still have some of those?
We still have some. They're in less oil industry heavy areas, I would say. So we have County Road 4 and County Road 1. Both of those are 8-ton, 80,000 pound roads, but County Road 1 is on the far west side of the county, so it's not quite as busy in that area.
Outside the tier 1, tier 2 formation?
Yes, I would say so. But I think I remember the rest of your question. So we were talking about like preventative maintenance, and so we do mill and overlay to help extend the life of pavement. We do chip seals and crack sealing to help extend the life of pavement. those are really important because when we design an asphalt pavement section, it's typically designed with a 20-year service life. But we can get 50, 60 years out of a road if they're properly maintained. And the cost to properly maintain a road is significantly less than reconstructing it or doing major rehabilitation to it over its lifespan. When we're estimating, we've seen anywhere from like 1.7 million per mile to reconstruct a road to, in 2024, our County Road 30 project was about $2.7 to $3 million per mile. And that's reconstructing a road. And so that's a hefty chunk of change. But our chip seal might be $80,000 per mile, 80 to 90. A mill and overlay might be more around that 200,000 if you're doing a 2-inch mill and 2-inch overlay. So you can significantly increase the lifespan of an asphalt road by properly maintaining it year over year.
So what I hear you saying is, for the public listening out there, and I'm right in there too, it'll be a hot summer day and you'll be on your way home and you'll run into chip and seal and you have to slow way down. But there's benefits to the tax burden.
Most definitely. We don't like to make your life miserable. It's not our goal. So yeah, there's a benefit to what we're doing. So
it's not just to, ruin everybody's vehicles.
No, most definitely
It's
not.
to save on the road, extend the life, extend the dollars invested in the road infrastructure.
Which the county has, over the past five or so years, the county has really prioritized preventative maintenance on their asphalt roads, which is really great. So,
well, I live on an upgraded road, and just the entire network and the infrastructure. Egg folks move. They move livestock. They move feedstuffs. They move cash crops, and the efficiency that our egg community is seeing in this road infrastructure is incredible too. Like, we can add depreciation life to equipment, and it's valuable to everybody who uses the road system, not just the oil industry.
And most importantly, the county's doing safety upgrades to these roads. So there are wider paved roads. We have flatter inslopes, which we're flattening vertical curves and horizontal curves, trying to make these roads safe for everybody who is traveling on them. Because we recognize that everybody's traveling on them. It might be a combine, it might be your teenager, and it's also the water hauler traveling down them. So we want to make them as safe as we can.
Yep, that's a good point. The added safety enhancements too. That you get into other parts of the country and you forget about some of those safety enhancements that just give you that buffer that you need to get to where you're going.
I might be biased, but we have great roads in McKenzie County.
We do.
Our road and bridge team does a great job maintaining them, and we have a really nice transportation network.
Great.
I would agree. I also live out of town to the north, and the roadway system is fantastic, and not to mention even the gravel road maintenance. The road and bridge department does a great job with the MAG and in keeping them smooth. And you kind of it's easy to forget about the washboards and the dust and the mud from years ago.
It is, and how hard that is on vehicles. How quickly that takes the value out of them. So cool. One of the places I wanted to go or talk about a little bit before we kind of move on to the next thing is Grace did a really good job of explaining the county's priorities, keeping commerce moving, keeping industry moving, keep all traveling public safe. Justin, can you talk a little bit about the city definitely has an extensive list of CIP items. We always go back to the historical piece. Starting in 2015, we really started hammering down on CIP improvements that allowed Watford City to grow. We would not have been able to grow without the water project improvements, the wastewater treatment project improvements, the road system. But also those community facilities, like those are also part of the city CIP plan. So can you talk a little bit about how the city looks at it's community facility CIP, it's road CIP, it's wastewater treatment and water. The wastewater and water usually kind of go together, although there's a lot more funding sources outside of taking on city debt to do that wastewater treatment. That's a beast of its own. You kind of have to pay for that whole thing all by yourself because there's just not any other opportunity. But can you talk a little bit about categorizing those CIP projects into the different category lines and then how you sort of prioritize all of those in the building blocks of growing the community?
Sure. Well, stepping back to talking about that 20-year plan, which Grace, before we started talking here, was talking about how the county's plan is looking at different aspects. Grace was part of was city engineer when the 2040 master plan for Watford City was created. And part of that was breaking the different infrastructure types into groups, one of those being facilities. The facilities were kind of graded, the existing, and that's one way that was used to prioritize different infrastructure or facility upgrades, as well as looking at several other facility needs throughout the community. Those were included in that plan and are continually revisited based on, again, funding availability and where the need in the community might sit. For example, Fire Hall was on the list 5 years ago, but it's now much closer to being into the active project list, and the committees for building and the water and sewer and road committees all get to review the list of projects and consider staff recommendations for prioritizing what gets done. Again, there's finite resources. One thing that has helped with not so much facilities, but also infrastructure projects was McKenzie County is supporting Watford City on some debt service, which has freed up some funds to direct to other projects. And that has also aided in being able to prioritize some infrastructure that wouldn't have normally or wouldn't have been done in the same time frame. One thing that happened after the 2020 master plan was there was quite a bit of inflation for a few years. Mm-hmm. And so the schedule of the projects has been extended due to that. But this support from McKenzie County is helping to expedite that a little bit to get kind of closer to what the plan was a few years ago on those projects.
Do you want to talk? So I think it's a really good place to pause and historically just look back. Like Watford City and McKenzie County, I think, let's go back to 2010. The 2010 to 2015 era is really when just a lot of these growth commitments had to happen and big infrastructure commitments had to take place. And I looked to some examples, and when you talked about the fire hall, like we don't know a lot of the details about what that'll look like, but what we know is our volunteer fire departments are still serving the Watford City District and the rural McKenzie in the same buildings, housing the equipment that they need to, provide their public safety efforts in the same buildings. But this just popped up, and I'm going to pull the look forward on the expansion of the fire hall back to some other examples that I think were really smart from an infrastructure investment piece and a CIP plan. Both the city police department and the McKenzie County Sheriff's Department needed additional space. Instead of doing two different facilities, they're now in the co-located law enforcement center. That's an example. I think there's a lot more out there. But do either of you want to talk about, because you've worked together for quite some time, do either of you want to talk about that collaborative approach that's always looked at? Because I think the engineers seriously see some of these projects first and are tasked with figuring out what's the best approach for it. So do you guys want to talk a little bit about the collaborative nature of how you approached those historically?
Sure. You want to go first?
I can talk more from the road standpoint, I guess. So when I was first at the county, we worked on transfer agreements and a JPA with the city for the road by Smiling Moose, so 11th Avenue, and then 14th and 17th and Main. So that was all one transfer agreement, which we just recently transferred the road. So that was really exciting. But then I worked on it at the city too, because those projects were going on, actually being constructed when I was at the city, and then coming on the back end again. And like Justin said, with the new urban area, some of our CIP projects fall into the urban area. And so we'll probably have to work through funding together on that, how those projects will get funded. Because now the city can get federal dollars for those projects, whereas the county used to be able to, and now, so we'll have to work through that, and then just what those projects look like, because we'll probably try to set up some transfer agreements again. So as these roads get improved, we turn them over to the city. And so, yeah, we definitely have to collaborate on a pretty regular basis as to how roads are improved, what those ETA roads look like. And Main Street South here, the multi-use path that's going in, that's a great example as to where, I mean, honestly, the state, we have a federal grant that it's in the state right away that the city will be taking over and maintaining after the county constructs it. So we have all sorts of governments working on that project together to get it done.
Very good.
Yeah, the example you referred to with the LEC was a collaborative effort that I wasn't very closely associated with, but it worked very well having the two agencies be able to work on the project together and co-locate to make the most of the space and of the time frame to get the facility constructed. I know PD was back at City Hall in very tight quarters before those times. So.
It was so bad. It was, yeah. Anyway, yes. So that one comes to mind as vertical. I just drive on roads. I just drive on them. It's terrible. It's yeah. So I'm unaware oftentimes of what's going on with roads. I just know if it's a good road or it's not. Or I like it or I don't.
Basically live and breathe roads. So
Right. That's cool. And I imagine going forward, we'll continue to see a lot of that collaborative.
And another aspect of that is the Watford City Water Utility and the McKenzie County Water Resource District. Because of the WAS, well, actually it goes back to the beginning of the Water Resource District. Watford City supplied the water to the Water Resource District initially on the initial rural water system, and then Western Area Water Supply came along, and now the Water Resource District supplies Watford City's water from WAS through the Water Resource District to Watford City. And then in addition to that, there are several pipelines in town here that the county and the city share because of part of it goes back to the 1926B requirements, but it works well to save building redundant infrastructure. If you've got customers that are in the city limits and a county customer nearby, we share the same pipeline. So that's worked very well as dealing with the water rates and sharing between different projects as well, a government rate for like county projects and city projects, rather than charging a different higher rate for one versus the other. So.
So smart infrastructure.
Yeah, definitely.
Smart infrastructure really helps budgets. And
Yeah.
thus smart budgets help taxpayers. Cool. Very cool. So there's definitely a lot of collaborative things that we don't even know and or understand, but are appreciated because the bottom line, it trickles all the way down to the resident and the end user. So very cool. Okay, one other thing I wanted to definitely talk about, and maybe both of you have thoughts on this, but also, McKenzie County was Coy, we verified this the other day. McKenzie County was the fastest growing county, all classes. It didn't, regardless of the classes, as the U.S. Census sees them, percentage of growth, 2010, 2020. Watford City grew incredibly fast as well. We went from 1,700 to 6,200 people in that decade. And our wastewater treatment plant tells us we're serving another probably 2,000 people in the community beyond what U.S. Census recognizes as a population, a residential permanent population. So both county and city have grown a lot. And when you look at CIP plans, you have to address both your growth needs to be able to grow with the opportunity, with the economic opportunity. And then you also have to be able to service and maintain that legacy infrastructure. So considering Watford City was homesteaded, founded 1914, we're looking at infrastructure in a lot of cases that's near 100 years old, some over, some a little less, but still aging. Justin, do you want to talk a little bit? And I think, Grace, when you went through the 2040 plan as well, have some thoughts on how you come in, meet the growth opportunities, but also address the legacy and either the deferred maintenance or the O&M it takes and the upgrades to keep that infrastructure operating long term.
Sure. As I was saying earlier, there was as you mentioned, a big surge in construction through the 2010s to meet the demand of new residents in the city, or apartments and houses and roads and infrastructure to supply them. And there's always been a portion of the capital improvement funding directed toward legacy infrastructure, which continues to happen and will for the foreseeable future. The city's shifting gears a little bit on this year due to a legacy infrastructure. A lot of the older part of town, the water and sewer lines were installed in the late 30s and mid 40s. And there's a plan to progress through replacing those utilities. And we typically have been doing a few blocks per year. And the way it's oftentimes worked out was a water main break or something reprioritized what order things are getting done in, and that continues. That's one of the reasons for this summer's water main project. Speaking of construction, the folks north of 4th Ave and east of Main Street will experience some temporary water supplies and some construction on their streets. We're replacing all the water mains in that portion of town this summer due to several water breaks that happened in the winter of 24. And we're going then beyond that. The next project will be a street reconstruction here on 2nd Street Southwest and 3rd Avenue Northwest. And those will progress. We've got basically a preliminary plan to progress through those over the next 10 to 20 years to get all of that infrastructure replaced. Again, it depends from year to year on funding availability and infrastructure condition. We had an unexpected failure of a sewer line last year that's causing us to switch streets on one of those projects. But once this construction is done, typically you'll end up with a completely new street, such as Park Avenue West was done here in 2019. It'll look like that. So.
Okay. So those are some upcoming ones, certainly.
Yes.
We might get into a little more of that looking forward as well. I just really wanted to make sure, like we talked about, I mean, we had that limited time to have the opportunity to grow, and there was a lot of, what do you guys have a term for it?
Linear infrastructure.
Linear infrastructure, thank you, Grace, that really needed to happen before we could look at this growth plan, and that really kind of put a pause on some of the other portions of town.
Yes, that for a few years there was minimal upgrades done to the existing infrastructure.
And I would say last year, so for those who aren't aware, I think most people are, but the city came in to the county and made a request and said, could you please support our bond debt, which is tied to wastewater treatment and is tied to the Rough Rider Center. That's the big two debt pieces that the city has. There might be some smaller stuff here and there, but those are the two big pieces. Help us support those bond payments, and we will go and use the freed up funds to do some of this catch up. And then there were some other projects too that I think the county definitely supported the city on being able to continue to move both paths forward. So,
yeah, they're looking at, we've got chip seals, concrete repairs, replacing legacy infrastructure. There's a couple of street expansions that we're looking at for some housing projects coming up in the next 2 to 3 years. All that can be possibly, that possibly would have been done without that funding to free up some other improvement dollars. So
that's been very helpful, especially to the people living in the 21 blocks of Old Town.
Yes.
On that old legacy infrastructure. So it's been a good opportunity to move forward quickly, I think. So you talked a little bit about it, Justin, what people will see in Watford City in terms of infrastructure in 2026. And again, this is where I go back to the pains of progress. So I know a few people that are part of that water main replacement, and they're like preparing themselves mentally for what this summer will look like for them in their homes, because I'm not going to say it's not going to be overly disruptive, but there will be disruption. But the long-term benefits are great. So
yeah, they will be great. This project, we ended up splitting the water from the rest due to what we felt the urgency of being able to supply water on Christmas Eve type stuff. So
Yep.
Kind of important.
Yes. So this area of town will experience some additional construction replacement work in the next 5 to 20 years for the sewer and the streets. But typically, these projects, these street reconstructions will happen, and then there won't be another one for quite some time. The infrastructure life we shoot for water mains is around 70 years, and the streets, like Grace was saying, 30 to 50 to 60 years, depending on how the maintenance of it goes. And sewer pipe potentially even longer than that. So the disruptions aren't overly frequent, other than you do get the maintenance type of work will happen every few years, such as a crack sealing, or every 5 to 7 years for a chip seal, or 15 to 20 years maybe for a mill and overlay, depending on the condition of the roadway. So there are those, but they're typically short-lived within a day or two.
Well, the maintenance is appreciated. It really is, because you can build something, and if you don't maintain it, you have nothing left in a very, very short period of time. So, yes, very cool. Grace, before Coy started running the cameras, you said 2026 is going to be pretty intense for projects out in the county, and probably both on our county infrastructure and also on our state and or federal highway infrastructure close to Watford City and the corridor that travels through Arnie Garden, Alexander as well. Can you talk a little bit about what people should prepare themselves for when they are planning their leave times and their commute times?
Yeah, I'm going to remind myself,
Yes.
leave 5-10 minutes earlier before work so that I could get to where I need to go on time. But so Highway 85, they'll be reconstructing that from south of the Long X Bridge down to Highway 200. It's split into 2 different projects, and they're anywhere from, I think, 2 to 3 year projects as well. And they'll be getting started, as soon as they can, as soon as they feel like they're going to be able to keep trucking along. They'll be getting started this spring. And then I can't speak too much to the DOT, but I believe there's a mill and overlay project that's going to be done between Watford City area to the Alexander area. So I believe it's a mill and overlay that they're doing on Highway 85.
And that's on Highway 85 as well.
Mm-hmm.
So both directions of Highway 85, we will see things.
Yes.
We will see pilot cars. We will see things.
Yeah, so keep your head on a swivel, slow down. The construction workers want to get home at the end of the day too and back to their families. So yeah, definitely slow down. But and then we'll be reconstructing County Road 27 or Red Wing Road. We did 8 miles, the north 8 miles last year, and we'll be finishing the rest of the 8.2 miles down to where the end of the pavement is, so south of the Red Wing gas plant. We'll be reconstructing 24th Avenue, which will definitely probably be a little bit of a bugger with the McKenzie County Athletic Park and the Ag Expo there. But afterwards, we're going to have a really nice road. Like I said, we'll be replacing that timber bridge along 24th Avenue. And that project will actually, substantial completion is the end of July. So they'll be able to, kind of move through it rather quickly. We just had our pre-construction meeting for it today. So that's really exciting.
Okay. Is there anything or you can share with the public? Like, will the MCAP have an alternate route to it, or?
So they'll likely shut down the road for the most they can do such as 21 days. And that'll be when they're replacing the bridge. That's when because they can replace it with the box culvert much quicker if the road is shut down, and they don't have to maintain traffic going along it.
Mm-hmm.
So for some of it, people will have to take an alternate route. They're not going to be able to travel straight through. But other than that, those 21 days, they'll be able to drive it, but whether they necessarily want to drive it or not might be a different story.
So it's a good idea to go out to the bypass, both for the MCAP and for the Ag Expo, and then come back to those facilities from the bypass.
Probably recommended, yeah.
That sounds like a good plan, because 24th is a little tight in a lot of ways. So
yeah, it'll be busy. But like I said, they'll be not out of there completely, but open to traffic on an asphalt road, hopefully by the end of July.
Okay.
And then we're working on roads, reconstructing the roads in Grassy Butte, and then reconstructing Main Street and First Ave in Keene. So hoping to let those projects sometime this year, maybe get started this year, but probably trickle into, we're already in 2027. Kind of crazy, but probably trickle into 2027 some. Those roads could really use some love. So that's something that we saw coming out of our CIP planning process, that especially some of the pavement just needs to be upgraded.
So the community members in those communities, it'll still maintain a rural standard, but resurfacing, or will?
So we're looking at a bit of a hybrid. Okay. So we went out there because we knew that our typical CMC or county major collector road wasn't going to fit in these communities. And so we really didn't want to we brought ideas, but we wanted to listen to the communities to see what they needed. So do we need extra parking lanes in some areas along Main Street where their business centers are? Do we need paths, infrastructure for walking? What do we need, and what would they like to see down there? So we brought them some ideas back in December, and then we've been working through planning and designing, and then we'll be going back at the end of April to bring what we have prepared so far to both of those communities again. And we're hoping to, just get them upgraded so they can have some nice new roads.
Nice. Well, so the disruption piece for them will be next construction season, really, then it sounds like?
Yeah,
Okay.
possibly later
Okay.
this summer, fall timeframe.
Okay. And what I encourage every listener out there who hears this, especially if you have kids that love parks and you've worked through all of our wonderful parks in Watford City, Arnegard, Alexander, Grassy Butte, and Keene all have really great parks.
They do.
So if you get a chance, go out and see the roads in those communities, but then also take your kids to the parks because they have great parks.
Speaking as a toddler mom, we have some really great parks in McKenzie County as a whole, I would say. We've gone to quite a few of them.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
we also will have chip seals and mill and overlay projects. So we'll be mill and overlaying 28 miles worth of road this year and then 50 miles of chip seal roads.
Wow.
So we've got a busy year ahead of us.
Where are those happening? All throughout the county?
Chip seal will be throughout the county. County Road 14, I believe, and County Road 16 will be the roads that are mill and overlaid.
Okay. Cool. Very great. Very great. Okay, so I feel like the notes that I had, we've covered a lot of them, but you both brought really good packets. Is there information in these packets that you would really like the residents of McKenzie County and Watford City to know that we haven't covered yet?
I was just going to add that these projects are very expensive. The 20. Well, we've updated the 10-year plan with some updated pricing, and that alone is over $100 million. And so the funding requirements will continue. And even on these street reconstructs, we're looking at around $1 million a block for a all-in street reconstruction.
So if I'm doing simple division, $100 million over 10 years, that's about $10 million that we're putting into CIP annually.
There's a couple of big hitters in there that are on that 10-year plan that take a couple chunks of that out. But
okay,
yeah,
are those some redevelopment areas?
Yep.
Okay.
5 to 10 million per year.
Okay.
Average.
Yes. I don't think we'll get into a lot of depth on that right now because we're still just waiting for a couple pieces to fall, but we plan to have a pretty extensive conversation at some point in time about our downtown redevelopment areas, and we have one of them, Area 2, that's coming up, and that's turning into a pretty realistic plan and timeline. So we hope to be back and talking about that in a couple months in more detail. So because at some point in time when that does kick off later this year, there will be probably some disruption to the public on Main Street as well a little bit. So
right.
Yeah, but we'll save that one for a future episode. So Justin, thank you for pointing out though that serious investment is made in infrastructure and going through that whole planning process, which we started talking about at the beginning. There's really prioritization pieces that go into how those are laid out. So, and I think the county does a great job too, but I watch the city work so diligently, both public works and engineering, to make sure that residents are taken care of during these times of project need. I'm always impressed at how the focus is on serving the residents and making sure that while they will be disrupted, it'll be as minimally as possible. So thank you guys for doing the great work you do. We get a lot less frustrated people that come wandering into our office looking for the person they can talk to about that than if you didn't take the time to really take care of the residents. So,
yeah, and the contractors that do a lot of that work, they do a great job of caring for the local neighbors that have to deal with the activity. So
that's great.
I think it's just continuous improvement too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Learning from the past project and
Yep.
what we can do better on future projects.
Yes, definitely. Grace, is there any more you want to talk about both on your packet that you brought in that you really want people to know about? And if you do, I would love to spend a little time too, because we've had several county engineers and like you said, they've all brought great CIP plans forward, but that process of interfacing with those impacted by the projects, do you want to talk any more about really how your office works with that directly, your department today? And maybe it's a little different than it looked, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, even 3 years ago.
Sure. Yeah. I'd be happy to. I like fun facts. So when you were talking earlier about like looking outside of your core area and further development, the county has 931 miles of roads, just county roads. And so of those 931 miles of roads, 246 of them are paved, and the remaining 685 are aggregate scoria or have like a sod surfacing. And so in addition to that, we have 350 miles of township roads that we maintain. So we're not necessarily looking to expand our transportation network, but we're really looking to maintain and take care of what we do. And so when we were looking at updating this CIP plan, which I would say we kind of went through like a master planning process this past year. So this in-depth of a process, we're not going to do every single year. It's more of a 5-year or a 10-year update, but we'll update our CIP each year. And so we really looked at what do we need to do with that existing infrastructure, what's its existing condition, what is the safety aspect of it, economic quality of life. We factored in like how much traffic is on the road and what is its functional classification too. So that's kind of how we prioritized our road projects. And for our 2026 to 2030 CIP, we're looking at about $290 million worth of projects. So there's still a considerable amount of infrastructure that we're looking to improve and work on. And then there's about 330 long-term projects. So after that 5-year horizon, 330 million that we're looking at. And that's just the different types of infrastructure that we're looking at installing. And so we definitely have a lot of work ahead of us, but and then you were asking about how we're going about the planning process. And so we're definitely working on that. So just recently, the county adopted a right-of-way policy, and it was more of a right-of-way acquisition policy. So we have permitting policies in our right-of-way. Like, we really care not just about the road top, but we care about the entire right-of-way associated with that road. And so we've been working through a lot of our like standard operating procedures and policies to just be more transparent and get information out to the public, because you don't know what you don't know. And so getting that information out to people really, just makes the process easier for everybody in the long run, hopefully. So we've developed a right-of-way acquisition project policy that we work through, again, at our Public Works Subcommittee. We had HDR has helped us acquire right-of-way for many years, and so they helped us develop this policy. And in that, we're implementing different like milestones. They're not necessarily milestones, but just different ways to engage the landowners earlier on in the process. Because when you're developing a project, you don't necessarily know all of your right-of-way needs until you get some preliminary design done. Just because with your different cuts and fills, how long those back slopes might tie out, it just gets a little challenging. But we can still be engaging the landowners. So we've implemented like a right of entry to get survey and environmental survey work done. We're now going to work with landowners on a regular basis to gain right of entry. And, in that we have some questions like, do you allow or would you allow motorized vehicles on your property to gather this survey or no? Like, we give that option to the landowners. And then we're trying to implement just on not every project, like our mill and overlay projects and our chip seal projects, we're not implementing public open houses or anything like that. But on our larger scale reconstruction projects, having those public open houses early on so we can engage the public and engage the landowners and hear their concerns with the project and let them know what we're thinking, having that back and forth at that time too. And then we've updated just some of our documents and how we fence. We have some good ranchers on our Public Works Subcommittee that have updated, helped update our fencing diagrams and what our fencing standard drawings look like even, just to make it so it's actually something that the landowners might want, as opposed to saying this is how we fence. So yeah, we've been really working to just make that a better process. And again, that policy is on our website. So if people have questions about, and it goes through what a project planning, like a project development life cycle kind of looks like too, to get a project actually out to bid. Just because not everybody knows what those timeframes might be and why we can't know exactly what right-of-way needs are at the beginning of a project, because we just don't know what those grading limits are at that time.
It's such a chicken and the egg, because you don't want to engage in a project that you can't get right-of-way for to complete. You don't want to spend the funds to start. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so that's why we're trying to engage early, to hopefully let us know earlier on, what the temperament might be for the road project.
Does the neighborhood want the improvement?
Yes, yeah, which is why we had so much public input on the CIP too, because we want to hear those concerns and be able to adequately inform the commission of concerns that might be associated with a road project or no concerns that might be associated with a road project.
So you might be hearing from one that doesn't want it. Meanwhile, through your input, you've attained the fact that there are 15 that do want it. So being able to fully
vet those.
Have that information.
As much as you can.
Exactly. So, well, that seems like that's really great improvement to just really creating investment in the places where the neighborhoods want the investment.
Yeah, and this might be getting into the details, but we even put like a diagram of what a road cross-section looks like, so that because not everybody speaks in slope, ditch bottom, back slope, road top, XYZ. And so we put a diagram in there so people can kind of see what we're talking about. And then we've included some different plats and plans so that, if they want to take a look at what might be presented to them, they're welcome to do such. Just want to make people informed of what's out there on the county website, I guess.
Well, that's great. We'll definitely get that information into the show notes, because I think a lot of times, and I think sometimes the public thinks the information isn't available, where it's really an issue of where do you find it, because there's a lot of information out there, but it's not always easiest to find. So we'll get that into the show notes so like people can listen and say, I want to see that engagement agreement, and we'll be able to link them to where that goes. So that'll be great. Justin, I definitely think we'll probably have you and maybe a group of other people back at some point in the next couple months to talk about some of the downtown stuff we're looking at. Sure. Excited to be able to do that. And I always want to are we missing anything? Is there anything else? Going once, going twice, don't want to miss anything you want to share out.
Only one other thing, as far as any other projects going on around town, there will be a concrete repair project over in South Park and over by the Rough Rider Center. We're doing a couple things, so there will be a few traffic disruptions for that if you're on your way to McDonald's or if you're over to the Rough Rider Center for an activity. And one other thing is that shared use path that is being constructed on Main Street. There'll be a bridge going in there.
So that'll be closed down for a bit?
Cherry Creek. That one won't affect the roadway, though. That's just off on the shoulder. So.
Okay, so the non-motorized portion of that. Okay, yep. I got you. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
And that the intention is actually to carry that sidewalk along 24th Avenue, too, all the way out to the athletic park and then out to the Egg Expo. So that's pretty exciting.
Because it's gotten to that point south, has it not, along Business 85?
It's past 24th Avenue with the long-term goal to get it down to CCC Campground at some point. So.
Okay, very good. Very good. That's a good long-term goal. Probably be very long-term goal. I mean, it's just kind of slow
down there
going.
A little further in the CIP.
It's a little slow going, but persistence is key. Mm-hmm. Persistence is key. So, hey, Coy, have we missed anything?
I think you got it all.
Cool. Okay, well, here's what I'm going to say, because I love engineers. I love when you bring your packets. What I can tell you is and this goes all the way back to, like, I call them the forefathers, like the Dale Pattons, the Ron Andersons, the Denton Zupkes, the Gene Veters, the Brent Sanfords, and all of the other people that were saying, if we do not have linear infrastructure, if we do not have capacity, if we do not have water, roads, sewer, If we do not have the hard infrastructure, electricity, we cannot grow our economic development aspects of the community, which really, for people who were not here in 1990 to 2010, maybe a little earlier, we started to feel the uptick before 2010, but our community was blowing off the map in that period of time. And if we would have let this opportunity pass us by, the whole shale revolution, and not grown with it, we would have not been able to grow that critical mass we need for long-term sustainability. So I just want to thank you guys again. Projects are so hard to push. They're so big. They're so dynamic. They're so massive. And when you're talking about just all of the pieces of moving projects forward, it's hard work. So thank you guys for doing the hard work that we've been able to grow off of and build off of. So.
Well, our pleasure. Yeah, to your point of thinking ahead, and kudos to those leaders for doing that and looking to build infrastructure with a mind for the future. There's a lot of the infrastructure that was put in town that's very, very, very expensive was sized to leave room for growth, which is a huge benefit for the community. So.
Yeah, let's think back on when I was at the city. I think I found a PowerPoint from like 2002 or something, and it was talking about, I want to say maybe even this building, that said if we don't do something, like nobody's going to, and we're not going to keep growing. And so even back then, they had the forethought of like, how do we make our community a great place to live? And so really the stepping stones to get to where we're at now have been, planted or placed long ago. So.
Yeah, and I can guarantee you I missed some people. Like, I know he did an interview with the media within the last month, so he's getting a little more out there. But Justin and I, our city administrator, Kurt Moen, I think really had a vision to like really be able to push forward. But it takes all those people to buy into it, to find the funding, to run the projects. It takes our state level cooperation from the departments at state level and the legislature to fund the core community that is in the center of the Bakken, the deepest part of the basin where we produce 30% of all the oil and natural gas. But if you didn't have the engineers there to be able to make the projects happen, we'd all just sit there with a vision and no packets to move forward and build.
You might give us too much credit, but thanks.
Well, we appreciate you guys. So with that, I imagine we'll visit with you again soon. We'll get those show notes in place. And until then, just a reminder to McKenzie County, these projects are so amazing on the back end. At the time, it's kind of the pain and disruption, but every capital improvement project improves our quality of life, our safety, and our efficiency of being able to move around and do things that we really love to do. So with that, I want to thank you both for being here. Wish you the best busy 2026 project-filled construction season coming up. So thank you guys so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.